Hey guys, welcome back. This is Project Life Week 1 2021. I am finally starting my 2021 album and I'm doing something a tiny bit different this week. I am using this stash kit. Throughout February, I'm using this kit. I put it together with my patrons. I'm using it for as many projects as I possibly can, and it was out on my desk from the weekend. So I figured, why not challenge myself and use it for Project Life? Now, I'll be honest, when I put this kit together, the very last thing I had in mind project-wise was Project Life pocket pages of any kind. So there are no like traditional Project Life supplies in here. There's no journal cards. All of this is kind of scrapbooking supplies, predominantly from the Paige Evans Take the Scenic Route collection. And the week didn't really work out how I thought it was going to. My photos, I felt, were really kind of colourful but busy, and I thought I was going to keep this spread really kind of light and bright, which you can see is not the direction I'm going at all, not even a little bit. I have pulled out a yellow polka dot paper from the 6x8 pad, predominantly because I've got a yellow sleeve in there, so that's kind of where I picked that. And then as I was going through the 6x8 pad, I really loved that kind of painty pink paper, so I decided to use that for a title card. Now really the only paper in here that I've trimmed out to 3x4, which was something I thought I was going to do because it was one of the lighter patterns in the collection. I don't even end up using it, spoiler alert, because I'm going to go a totally different direction. I'm not going light and bright, I'm going to go colourful. Now the other thing that I've kind of changed around here is when I went through the sort of die cut pack looking for a journaling spot for my journaling card, I pulled out this little circle that has the wee bird on it. It's really pretty. I don't need a whole lot of journaling this week, so it's going to be a fine size. But I decided if I'm going to chuck a circle on there, why not chuck a few circles on there? So I took my 2 square photos and took them over to my Cuttlebug. One I did manage to die cut with a circle, the larger photo, but the smaller one I didn't quite have a die the right size. So what I ended up doing was flipping it over and tracing the inside of one of the dies and then just hand cutting it so that I got the most amount of photo into that circle that I possibly could. Then I decided that I'm going to go the whole hog, so I trimmed out a partial white circle from cardstock for my title card, and I've done the same thing down here for my larger circle photo. Because I ended up trimming out the white border off that photo when I made it a circle, I've just kind of fakely added that back in just to help it stand out off that yellow a little bit. Now I'm going to have the same kind of problem with the smaller photo, but I'll deal to that one later. I'm kind of moving things around, just working out where the circles best look kind of balanced, and I'm a little bit stuck with the title card. I know where I want to put my semicircle, but I also know what part of that paper I don't want to cover up, so I'm a bit conflicted. I took this little journaling spot, I just temporarily adhered it to my journal card so that I could run that through my typewriter, and then I've adhered it down fully onto the bottom of that card. Now, part of my kit, and I guess you could call this Project Life supplies, I did have a few stamp sets in this kit. These are both from Inner Creative Bubble and Feed Your Craft. They are older sets, no longer available to those of us not in the US anyway. And I'm just gonna add a few stamps here and there, and I guess that's as far as like traditional supplies as I get, but you'll see it all comes together. Now one thing I did want to do is I loved this little camera stamp, and I decided to create a little embellishment with it. So I have stamped it once on white cardstock, and then without re-inking it, I had no need to re-ink it, I've just stamped it again onto that same pink pattern paper. So the reason I used the same paper is I really want to bring that pink down to the bottom of the spread, kind of to balance it out a little bit. There's a huge chunk of pink up there, so I want to add a little bit of pink elsewhere. So I just sort of ghost stamped that camera, And then you can see I've trimmed out the middle portion of it. Now I've made sure that when I've trimmed that, I've trimmed inside the stamped lines. And so when I place that down onto my stamped image on the white cardstock, you can still see all of that stamp, so you've still got all of the black outlines, but those little inside pieces are filled in with the pattern paper. You could definitely have like filled them in with a pen or some color pencils, anything you like, but I really love that I managed to get that same pattern down there. The camera is a little bit harder to trim out because there's a few kind of buttony pieces at the top, so I've just roughly trimmed it, and then I've got this little handmade embellishment, and I'm working out where I'm going to stack that with the stamp that I want to use that says daily routine. To make sure my stamps don't stick on my photos when I do that, I do just add the little acetate piece from the back of the stamp sets. My photo paper, which is Canon Photo Glossy 2 paper, can be very sticky with stamps, so I don't want to end up ripping off any of that printing. So I do make sure I protect the photo with that acetate while I'm moving stamps around like that. So I stamped directly on the photo with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and then I just added the little camera embellishment on top of there. Love how that turned out, super cute. I'm going to do the exact same thing basically on this photo here, except I'm skipping the white cardstock portion of that technique. I'm going to just stamp directly on my photo. There's this word, it says captured, and then from a second stamp set there's this tiny little sun icon. So I'm going to stamp him just directly onto the photo because there's no way I can trim out all of those little lines that come out from outside of him. So I stamped it straight on the photo, and then I did the same thing. I kind of ghost stamped him onto it's just that very top sort of branding strip portion of one of the scrap papers that I had left over from the 6x8 pad. So it's a slightly different pattern than the yellow down the bottom. It's not a polka dot, it's a very thin stripe, but it is the same color. And I love that little pop of yellow at the top. So it brings those two things together. I've got the pink from the top down the bottom, and then the yellow from the bottom up the top. Super cute. I love how that worked out. One of the things I was super happy with this spread. Now here I'm going to move on to my title card, and this, this does take me a little bit of time to get it sort of sorted. This is where I want that semicircle to go because I really love having those kind of blue pieces of that pattern paper visible. I didn't want to cover them up with my semicircle. So I end up with my circle up the top, which probably is not ideally where I would have wanted it, but I'm going to go with it, and I'm just kind of playing at this point. I'm playing, but while sticking things down, which might not have been the best option. You can see me here determined to try to put it down the bottom, but it's just not working, so it's going up the top. And I do end up peeling things off several times as I attempt to make this work. So this was one of the labels that was in the die cut pack. I auditioned a couple of different colors, but in the end I figured it's this kind of tealy blue that I'm trying to see in the background paper, so I may as well use that as the label color as well. And then I'm going to add my alphas, and this is where things get a little bit kind of, I wish I had planned things better because I've already gone ahead and stitched that circle down, so there's no peeling that back off. Had I not already done that, I probably would have moved it over a little bit, because you can see when I add these Pink Fresh alphas, the white K does not show up particularly well on the white circle. It certainly doesn't here on camera, and to be honest, it really didn't in real life either. So I was sort of a bit stuck on where to put it, how to make it work. I didn't want to move the word over anymore, because then 2 letters would get lost on the white background. But I really did want it to be a bit sort of closer to the end of that label. So what I'm going to do is I layered one flower underneath the label, and you'll see I'm about to peel that back up again too, because I realized there's no numbers in that alpha set. So I'm going to end up stamping my number. I'm using the Bolton Street numbers from Kelly Stamps, and I'm going to stamp that in black, because like I said, a lot of those photos have some sort of darker tones in them, and I think the black's just going to stand out really nicely with all this pastel-y goodness. But what I'm doing is layering that stamped one underneath the floral. And then I had the idea that if I tuck another floral in here, those alphas will stand out a little bit better. So I'm peeling everything back up again. I'm going to add this yellow flower under here again, keeping those colors a little bit consistent. And that means I can add my alphas back in and I can move them over a little bit more towards where I wanted them to be. And they stand out much better because they have that floral underneath them. Now I like kind of threes, so I'm gonna add this little red flower under here. The reason I'm adding the red is there's a little bit of red in that smaller circle photo because that was the day I finished my December daily. Woohoo! And I kind of want to tie those little pops of red in just a little bit more. I've got quite a sort of pink and yellow thing going, so the red is just kind of adding to that color scheme. Now, since I added those flowers up the top for the title card, no reason I can't go the whole hog and add a few more flowers in here as well. So I've added some on my bottom photo. I've just tucked them in behind the white cardstock and then stitched around there as well. And I'm going to do the same thing here with my journal card. So this time though, I just stitched on the white background of the card and then tucked my little florals in there again with that little pop of red. Now I've got one photo left to deal with, and at this point I sort of had really no idea what I was going to do with it, to be honest. I had to try and make it stand out off the background paper. I decided to cut a white circle and that really did nothing. It didn't help it at all. It's a fairly light photo on a fairly light paper. I wondered about adding it onto a darker paper and I thought maybe I could bring in some more red here, but it was really very overwhelming, so I did not feel the red paper at all. But I remembered there was this kind of pink and teal floral paper in here that I saw before, so I'm going to go with that. It kind of has got nothing to do with my December daily at all, but it works nicer with the color scheme and it kind of ties in the fact that I've used all these florals. I'm using florals for no other reason than they're there. I guess it's summer here, so it is a little bit flowery, but I love how that turned out. I'm going to stitch around that as well. And it was at this point when I bought that stitch card back, I realized that both of my other photos have got kind of semicircle circles in them as well. So I'm glad I picked this theme. I've ended up with this kind of really accidental but fun kind of polka dotty layout, and I really enjoy it. I'm going to add one more little label down here to the bottom, and this is where I'm going to bring in my last little pop of red since I didn't use the red pattern paper. One of these, I don't know if you call them a label or an arrow. Either way, I trimmed the arrow portion off it. I'm trimming a whole lot of the red off it too, so it's just a regular kind of looking label. And I'm going to use that as a spot just to add another stamp in here. It says Little Moments. I'm going to stamp it in black, and then I can go ahead and adhere that down. And it kind of completes that cluster. It adds the little bit of red, adds a sentiment on there. The last thing I'm going to do is try to add some more stamps. I realize I've got two photos in here that I haven't really done a whole lot to, both food photos too. I'm just going to stamp one little stamp on top of my noodle dish there. The lightness in the photo made it perfect for stamping on. I was trying to add another one, but I decided just leave it as it is. I've made this complicated enough as it is, and that's my layout all done. So it might have been more complicated than I had hoped for, but I really love how it turned out. It's bright, it's pretty, it's fresh, and I used a bunch of stash, and that's really going to be my theme for the year. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.